because that's what's going to happen. Ah! See what that guy's doing? He's like, ah! Screaming, holding on to the football. And that's how we do it. You got to do that again, Bloom. I missed it. We are back. It is the news and notes here on the Audible, the footballguys.com podcast. Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom going over the latest news from around the National Football League. And oh boy, do we have some big news to get to, mainly about Matthew Stafford. So we're going to talk about all this and all that. But first, the big game is here. Kansas City versus Tampa Bay. New customers can play free from $1 million and for $1 million with their first deposit. Thanks to our partnership with DraftKings. Create your DraftKings DFS account and make a deposit. DraftKings will credit your account with a free contest entry. Draft your lineup and compete for the $1 million top end prize. Just go to dkng.co/big game to play. That is dkng.co/big game. Enter now. Offer ends on 2/7 at kickoff. Minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for full terms and conditions. Bloom, the terms and the conditions of the Matthew Stafford trade. Carolina was in it. Washington was in it. Denver thought they had him. More on that in a little bit, Bloom. But let's talk about who got him and the Rams and how things fell apart, because just days ago, Bloom, on our newswire came across that, like, well, McVay says John Wolford is going to compete with Jared Goff, and then they just deal him. So this thing fell apart quickly, or should I say came together quickly on the other end, as the Lions now have Jared Goff and the Rams now have Matthew Stafford. Let's concentrate on the Rams side of things first. And what did you think of this deal overall?
It's a good deal for everybody involved. It's rational acting by everybody involved. Okay. Let's start with the Rams first. One of the first takeaways is, in these post-game, post-season press conferences, when a GM, when a head coach says, that's our quarterback right now, pay attention. Coaches know that we're going to parse their words. Well, Nick Sirianni maybe needs to work on that a little bit, but that's okay. I'm not going to hold it against him. Coaches know we're going to parse their words. Coaches know we're going to look at every single thing they say and read into it. So McVay and Snead knew what they were doing when they put out there, even putting the things out there about John Wolford's going to compete with Goff. Something even got leaked over the weekend before the trade got done, Cease, that, that motivated Goff, which tells me that's not. Well, another thing that's interesting in the background here, Cease, because Goff and Wentz, as it is, when quarterbacks go 1-2 in a draft, they're tied together forever, right? One of them has actually played in a Super Bowl. One of them has been on a team that won a Super Bowl, even though he wasn't the quarterback in the Super Bowl. And could they be handling these quarterbacks more differently, even though both of them got to a point where there was a crisis of confidence in them in 2020? So the Rams, McVay, whether you agree with him or not, he obviously had clarity, that this team could only go so far with Jared Goff. And he acted. So let's look at the Rams side. 2 first-round picks in the late 20s. And their first-round picks discounted a year, which I probably don't discount them as much as the league does, but they're discounted a year. They only give up a third-round pick this year. They don't have a first-round pick this year to give up anyway. So Matthew Stafford, so if we're looking at Goff versus Stafford, it's not just like, it's like this, it's, right. I'm doing hand stuff for the people that aren't doing it live. The gap is massive. Sorry, and look, any analysis of this trade is going to revolve around your evaluation of both of these quarterbacks, right? But Stafford can do so much outside of the structure of a play, but he can be better than Goff even within structure, which is the main value Goff has provided. And the other thing is, if there's a sense of, it's like any other relationship, when there's a sense of it's gone bad and it can't be fixed, even if it can from one side, I'm sure the McVay side was, it can't be fixed, and you move on. And I don't think we see organizations and we'll watch the Rams and the Eagles, because what did the Eagles do? The Eagles basically fired the coach and said, we're sticking with the quarterback, where the Rams trust their coach and 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick. I think that they opened a Super Bowl window. What's that worth? That's worth first-round picks. This team hasn't had a first-round pick since 2016. They're fine.
It's fine.
They remain a contender, and they've been reloading. I think they're going to be fine. We've seen offensive line turnover, not really a big drop-off. We've seen turnover in the secondary, not really a big drop-off. So I think this team is going to be fine, and maybe you disagree with Sean McVay about the need to move on from Jared Goff, but when a team feels like they need to move on, see, here's my quote, right? This was a match made in quarterback purgatory, not a match made in heaven. But maybe this is hopefully a return to sanity where we had the Dalton and Kaepernick contracts. You remember those? They were basically team options year after year. As long as you keep earning that top of the market quarterback salary, we'll keep giving it to you. But at a point where we feel like you're not earning it, we reserve the right to move on, and not with any kind of pain. Maybe those kind of contracts come back because teams are looking and seeing the Rams. Let's be fair. One of the first round picks was for Goff's contract, right?
Pretty much.
Deal, basically. Yeah. So teams are going to be careful, I think, when some of these quarterbacks come up for second contracts, if they're not a Dak Prescott, you know. So I think the Rams did something very smart, but I think the Lions did too.
And the Lions side is very interesting, but I want to get to Iowa's inverted here. It says, why does everyone say these picks are in the mid-20s? This is the NFL. So much can change year to year, and he's correct.
Yeah.
Now, the Rams are planning for them to be mid-20s or hell, 32, right? And we'll be honest about the draft. I was at the Senior Bowl this last week wearing my handy-dandy Reese's Senior Bowl shirt to prove it. Bloom, there's like 15 first-round players this year.
Right. Which is not that different than a typical year. And most years, like 18, 20.
Well, in a good year, it's like 20. In a good year, it's 20. So for actually truly first-round graded players, there are 32 picks. But actual first-round graded players, there's like half of that any given year. And when it's a good year, you get to 20. So essentially, if things work out the way the Rams want to, you're giving them a second-round pick. Which second-round picks you can just shuffle through left and right. And this is a team, as you highlighted, Bloom, they're used to not even having first-round picks. So build a different way. And I was asked, why did it fall apart with Sean McVay? You have to have the understanding of concepts. And this is a very simple concept, by the way. The McVay, Shanahan, West Coast, high-low read, bootleg, play action, rollouts, all those sorts of things. When you're not grasping that, when your coach is having to tell you the play up to 15 seconds, and every team knows it, like your coach is basically telling your quarterback where to go. So when people ask me, why did it fall apart with Goff? I simply highlight, McVay's probably sick of telling him what to do every time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's a question of, I think that was the Miami game. I really think the Miami game was where this broke in a way that couldn't be fixed because Miami pressured Goff and dared Goff to beat them, and they devoured him. Mm-hmm. And Jordan Rodriguez did a good job outlining that. Maybe it was even before this year, before the season, because the offense was hemmed in the passing game. No more low percentage throws downfield, and keeping everything simple. A game manager in the pejorative way, a game manager in the way that we use it to say a quarterback is limited. Sean McVay made a game plan for a limited quarterback. And once, as a coach, it would have to occur to you, that if you're saying, I am not keeping my whole playbook open for this quarterback, you need to make a change at quarterback. Mm-hmm. So I think that McVay was acting rationally here. And remember, this team's also going to extra third-round picks for some of the minority hires from the organization, too. So they'll be fine.
They'll be fine. And, Bloom, we also need to highlight just how different this is in the NFL. Because how many times has a team ran into it's not working with their head coach or their quarterback or both and just stay put, right? How will it work out? Just give it time. And then it just runs off the rails. And again, what are you competing for? It's called not for long for a reason. You're not going to coach for 25 years like Belichick, okay? That's not how it works, not with the same team anyway. You're going to bounce around, hopefully get another spot. And if you're McVay, you can't do what you want to do, which again is kind of simple, But if your quarterback's not getting it, so I just want to applaud the Rams for making a deal that puts them in a better spot to win and to truly get over the hump. Because oftentimes in the NFL, hell, look at Denver. They thought they had Stafford. Now they wanted a second rounder in return. Like the buzz, and this has been out there, so I'm not revealing anything, but the buzz was 9 overall, Drew Lock, a 3rd round pick. And they wanted a second rounder in return. It's like, are you kidding me? You're not going to get Stafford for that, for asking for anything in return. There was some buzz that the Lions wanted both Jerry Jeudy and Drew Lock, and the Broncos weren't going to do that. I don't know how true that is, but 9, 3rd, Lock, you'd have to throw in some other stuff too, and then don't ask for a pick back. But that's a team that if they don't get Deshaun Watson, and more on that a little bit later, Bloom, they're just going to sit there with Vic Fangio as their head coach. He's not a good head coach. And Drew Lock as their starter. He's not a good starter. So, speaking from personal experience, this is pretty common in the NFL. Well, we tried. We can't do it. And the Rams were like, screw it. We're going to do it however we have to.
And they went in for Rodgers, too. They tested the waters there. They probably offered something like 5 or 6 first-round picks. Or whatever, a blank check. You had to check. Other things coming in from Albert Breer. So kind of matching, Cease, what you said about the Broncos, because the Broncos one of the teams that we're in.
Can it come in from someone else other than Albert Breer?
Well, I hear you.
Sorry, when he's a jerk to one of my dear friends, like, screw that guy.
I
wouldn't, I won't go any further. Let me just say, if you start out your sentence, Albert Breer's reporting, I'm going to pretty much ignore it.
That's fine.
Sorry.
I understand. And Cease, maybe one day when we're truly emeritus members of this community we're in, we could just have one podcast series just devoted to telling stories about people in the media, good and bad. There's so many. Look, his report was Denver, just the price got too high, which kind of matches what you're saying. Some of the other also-rans, before we get into the Detroit side of things, Indy, according to Breer, was never really that serious. They were talking about picks and players, but never put 21 on the table. San Francisco, it sounds like, is like, yeah, we're probably just going to go forward with Garoppolo. Okay. I go back and watch week 1 last year before he was hurt. That's not a quarterback I want to go forward with. But that's where San Francisco is. Carolina offered number 8 and a later pick. Washington offered number 19 and a 3rd. So you can do the math here that extra first was to take on Goff's contract. But see, so I'm looking at the Lions side of this. And also, I think the Jets inquired. The Patriots, Tom Curran reporting that Matthew Stafford said, anywhere but the Patriots. Which he didn't
I can believe it.
I can believe it. Well, because Matt Patricia's there, I can believe it. But the Lions side also makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. I look at the Lions side of this, Cease, and what's smart here is much like the Rams, Brad Holmes from the Rams organization. And there's some other things, too, from that Monday morning quarterback, like Chad Hall. Remember Chad Hall? Mm-hmm. His sister is Matthew Stafford's wife.
Right.
And Chad Hall is friends with McVay. So that's part of how this gets done, right? I think the Rams were his first choice, too, Stafford. The Rams, like the Lions, Cease, Brad Holmes, looks at where they are in their arc of growth as a franchise. They're in an ideal spot to do a deal like this, and it's all win for them. So I think this was a situation where the Lions weren't going to get nearly that much from anybody else because they're taking on Goff's contract. But they're in a unique position to rehabilitate his stock, and it's the scale, Cease, right? Like, what's worth more? Cap room? Well, what do you do with cap room? Sign free agents? Well, these are guys that couldn't get a contract from their current team, or extend your current. Well, who are you extending? Who's in the 3rd or 4th year of their contract with Detroit? And you're like, that's a cornerstone. Right. That's a guy that we want to lock up. Right. They don't need cap room right now. They need players. They need players in Brad Holmes' image because he's such a tremendous scout of college talent. And they needed darts. and they got some good ones, and they have a chance to, unlike Brock Osweiler, make a commodity out of the reclamation project they got.
Right. And in 2 years, there's no dead money on Goff's deal. So we're going to know in a year. And I think after this year, there's 15 million remaining. And then whatever, eat it or don't eat it, what have you. Like the investment in Goff is this year. Well, what are you going to do this year? We don't even know which wide receivers are going to be back, right? Because we're waiting on the Kenny Galladay thing. And, you know, if he had his druthers, which I don't even know what druthers are, but if he had his druthers, he'd be like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
And Marvin Jones Juniors is out of here. Like all these things are changing. So while, you know, we didn't talk about the Rams skill position players, Bloom, and we can certainly do that because it's exciting with Matthew Stafford there.
Yeah.
The Lions, it's like, I'm glad I got DeAndre Swift in my dynasty leagues because it looks like it's going to be as much as that kid can handle.
Yes. And in some ways that was signaled with the hire of Anthony Lynn as offensive coordinator, right? And Deuce Staley, running backs coach, assistant head coach. That's good too.
Yeah.
And you're right. Fantasy, who cares about? I mean, this is, you know, the beautiful thing about this time of year is we don't have to put fantasy front and center. And there's always fantasy implications to everything that happens in football. But this is much more interesting just to talk about as football because, again, I think Injustice Mosqueda is one of the smartest people out there thinking and writing about football on any level, saying this was a big deal. This was the biggest dead cap in NFL history, Goff. And a team traded their starting quarterback as a salary dump. I do wonder about quarterback purgatory and if teams are starting to wise up about understanding when they are there. But yes, the Rams' whole offense gets an upgrade. You Cam Akers, you're thrilled, right? Robert Woods, excellent. Cooper Kupp, probably, if anyone takes a step back, it might be Cooper Kupp just because Goff relied on Kupp as that easy throw, the high percentage throw, where Stafford doesn't have to. Stafford can extend plays and do those things. Higbee is looking good here, and Van Jefferson's looking good here. On the Lions side of things, though, this just makes sense because Goff, what did Goff say already, Cease? I feel wanted. I'm glad to be somewhere I feel wanted.
Right.
Oh, okay. And how does he feel wanted? Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes was the guy who drafted him. And he said, we still believe in you. No risk. I mean, they can release him after a year or 2 years. Like you said, no dead money after 2 years. And if they just outright release him, they still got a first-round pick in exchange for like $43 million or something like that. We're going to have to pay him over the next 2 years. If you get a cornerstone player, and it's a player, again, in the image of the team they want to build, that's great. And they have a extra third-round pick this year, extra first-round pick. They're playing the long game, right? 3 years from now, nobody's going to care how Goff did, but it's also possible that Goff can be rehabilitated to the point that, well, I don't know, Cease, remember the Sam Bradford trade? Remember when poor Teddy Bridgewater's knee exploded and they got a first-round pick for Sam Bradford on the eve of the season? I mean, maybe that's the point. If you have Goff, you put him in a good situation where he's playing well, and hopefully it motivates Goff and it gets him to really dig in and prove Sean McVay wrong, prove the Rams wrong. You know?
It's a crucible. It's not necessarily a career near-death experience because you still got plenty of football left, but it's definitely a crucible. It's definitely a wake-up call. It's definitely, and this is in football and in life. We all need those points where you're like, oh, I'm not where I want to be yet, or oh, this is how I'm perceived differently. Like, so it's kind of a news update, if you will, for Jared Goff on where he's at.
And if they want to, at number 7, take Trey Lance, or maybe even move up to take Trey Lance, isn't that ideal? I mean, he needs a year in the incubator anyway. Wouldn't that be ideal? So they can still be players for a quarterback this year. They're probably going to be picking in the top 10 again next year. That's fine. I mean, this could be that convergence of, okay, let's say Goff doesn't improve. Let's say it really was McVay propping him up. That's okay. You get a top 3 pick, top 5 pick next year. You're in position to take his successor anyway. And they have the extra first-round picks. So I think that the Lions really understood where they were. They're starting from 0, and cap room is not as important to this team as more picks, more ammunition for Brad Holmes. So this really worked out well because I think if they trade him to Washington or Carolina and they get the first-round pick this year and they get additional pick or picks, that doesn't give them the opportunity to do like a pawn shop asset here, reclamation project with Jared Goff, because we see how this league is about quarterbacks. If Goff just plays reasonably effective football, and he did look better against Green Bay. He did look like a quarterback his arrow was starting to point back up again. Then they're going to turn him into an asset too. So I think that Lions fans should be really happy that of all the available options, this is one they took. And Cease, and this is something we don't get to say very often, the Lions and Brad Holmes, I'm going to keep mentioning Brad Holmes, created and played this market to a T, right? How quickly did this thing escalate from Washington's ready to step up? I think Carolina was back in the shadows a little bit, but they were also very aggressive.
Right.
As you said, Denver, there were talks there.
Well, and how quickly did it go? You and I have been talking about Stafford moving on since November.
Yes.
And, locally, at least, Bloom, I don't know about social networking because I don't really pay attention. But anyway, locally, I was getting pushback from some of my fellow co-hosts on the fan. Like, there's no way the Lions would let Stafford go. Really?
Right. And can I say that, Cecil, can I just tell on you? I mean,
sure.
In a good way.
Sure.
So, yes, folks, Cecil has been telling me privately for a long time that Stafford was not going to be with the Lions this year. See how time changes. So this was known in league circles that they were going to move on from him. But Cecil, it's usually the other way around, right? Mm-hmm. When the league knows you're going to move on from a player, then they have the leverage.
Yep.
And the Lions flipped it. And they had all the leverage, and they got in before the Watson situation resolved itself. Because now we're hearing a change in tune over there, right? John McClain, who is truly a definitive voice. John McClain and Lance Zierlein. Definitive voices on the Texans. Definitive. John McClain said a few weeks ago, I have a better chance of becoming the head coach of the Texans than Deshaun Watson has of being traded, right? Mm-hmm. Which would be an interesting idea. Yesterday, day before, over the weekend, he said, if the Texans trade Watson, which all of a sudden isn't, they're never going to trade him. If they trade him, they're going to want 2 firsts and 2 more picks and 2 defensive starters.
Yep.
And I would look to the Jets. So now his tune is changing. Lance Zierlein says, by the way, Jack Easterby is still making calls to agents. He's still very much involved in football operations. Albert Breer, that piece again, said, what needs to happen? What needs to happen with Watson is above the Nick Caserio level. It's above the David Culley level. A little preview of our coaching carousel show coming up later this week. It's at the ownership level. Can it even be mended? I don't know. But would the Lions and Rams be able to work out this deal after the Deshaun Watson deal? I don't know. I think it's just there's a tremendous job by Brad Holmes, and one that should make the Lions fans feel like they have competent leadership and should make them feel better about Dan Campbell after all the kerfuffle about the press conference.
Right.
And just really hitting a hard reset on this franchise and building something that the team, the community can embrace and be proud of.
They're doing business differently, which is good because they've been doing horrible business for decades. So now things might actually change. So good job, Detroit. Bloom, let's talk about what our buddy Jim in the chat room says. So he thinks it's down to Washington, Carolina for Deshaun Watson if we go with the we won't trade him the AFC storyline. I'm not speaking out of turn, and I feel comfortable saying this, Bloom. Yesterday, I had tweeted out, it's a pipe dream if you think Deshaun Watson's going to go to the Broncos. One, why would he choose the Broncos, right? Why would he, with the no trade clause, choose to go there? He'd probably choose Miami. The Jets and the Dolphins seem to be the 2 biggest front runners. If you would talk about that, we can throw in Washington, we can throw in Carolina. So as soon as I tweet that out, and I'll tell you off air who it was.
Okay.
I get a text, and it's like, not so fast, my friend. Not so fast. So I still believe the Broncos getting Deshaun Watson is an absolute pipe dream. Don't even think about it. Woody Page is tweeting about it. There's no way it's going to happen. And Woody, obviously very close with John and knows his stuff. But I just find it interesting when I make that definitive stand, Bloom, and there's no way. And then I get a message, and that message is from someone enough that I would say it on this show and be like, well, wait a second. is George Payton, the new GM of the Broncos, actually going to be even more aggressive? Because he missed out on Stafford. And again, I'm not speaking out of turn. The Broncos thought they had Stafford about a week ago. They thought they had him. And the Rams are like, no, we're going to get him. So there was that back and forth pricing wars, whatever. Maybe the Broncos know like how aggressive they'll have to be with Deshaun Watson. So we'll see. I still think it's a pipe dream. I still think the Jets or the Dolphins are the more likely destinations. But let's talk about all this stuff with Deshaun Watson and how that market is now shaping up sans or post the Matthew Stafford deal.
Well, the market probably is they can name their price, which is, John McClain putting out there. They would want a package, not quite the Herschel Walker package, Cease, but I don't think we've seen anything similar. Just that kind of trade. And in case you've joined us with our program in progress, Deshaun Watson, it was just the lack. I think there's the lack of involvement. He didn't want to pick the GM or pick the head coach, or he didn't think he was going to get to do that, but he thought he was going to be involved, and he wasn't. There's talk about the team's approach towards issues of social justice. And let's be fair, Cease. That is a tactful way just to talk about how things are in the building. Whenever Nick Caserio said, we're not trading the player. And one of the writers for the Patriots, one of the beat writers, Patriots said, that's Patriots way stuff. That's Patriots way stuff. Mm-hmm. You say the player because the idea is you're signifying that you're not emotionally attached to the human being because that can skew your thought processes.
Right.
It's like something you would do see, I have my law degree, my bar card. Like as a prosecutor or a defense attorney in criminal trials, you would make sure you always refer to the victim by their name, but it's the defendant because you want the jury to dehumanize the defendant.
Right.
So let's just say that's a tip of the iceberg kind of the culture underneath the surface. And I don't know. I don't like to whisper and gossip publicly, at least. I love to whisper and gossip privately.
I was going to say, what do you think we do before the show every time?
Exactly. But, Jack Easterby, he was the team chaplain, and
a motivational coach.
Yes,
because it has nothing to do, when I go into this, Bloom, I always say, it has nothing to do with religion at all. Because we're adults, we're men, let's talk about this. YouTube will monetize it, whatever, I don't care. This isn't about him being a team chaplain or religion. It's about him not being a football guy. Okay, that's the problem. You look at other teams in place and you look at what the Lions are doing. You look at what the Broncos are doing. You look at how their front offices have been changed with football guys, with football gentlemen who understand the game at a higher level, who understand talent. And when you're a team chaplain and a motivational coach, sorry, you don't get it that way. You don't understand it that way.
Yeah. And Cease will be able to reverse engineer the free agency moves and draft picks they make based on, and again, the NFL likes to handle this stuff very delicately, like a character test, right? A culture test, but a very rigid one. I think that it's becoming clear if you ask around that the Texans have a very specific idea of what's important to them in the culture of the team. And it's something that's driving someone like Deshaun Watson away. And you can ask questions like, well, why did he sign the extension after Bill O'Brien was still the head coach at the beginning of the year? I mean, he could have just not signed that. And that's another thing, Cease. And you can comment on this, right? How much are the other 31 owners invested? Okay, maybe not the other 31. Like the 20 owners or however teams that aren't in the Watson Derby. How much are they invested in Cal McNair drawing the line and saying no because of the precedent that it sets of the NBA style player empowerment.
Right.
So that is something in here too. But look, this is not, again, John McClain changed his tone on this. Okay. This is not the media making something out of nothing. Okay. Deshaun Watson, through his agent, has made sure to put out there how he's feeling about this. And with each additional news item, because I think it was Schefter whenever David Culley was hired, saying, "Oh, by the way, if you were wondering, the Watson camp says we don't care. That's not going to change anything. We don't care. That's not. We still want to be traded. In fact, we requested a trade weeks ago." The main question here is whether Watson and his camp are willing to sit out the season. I think that the Texans are going to, Nick Caserio is saying the right things. We have no intention to trade him and things like that.
Right, because what else are they going to say?
Right.
Yeah, he's on the block. I mean, no, if they say no, the price will go up.
No. And by the way, also, as kind of the in the wake of this, J.J. Watt and all the trade rumors about that coming up too, which I think is he's more likely to get traded than Watson. So we'll see. But I think that Deshaun Watson, tell me if you think I'm overstepping here. We have never, this isn't Jay Cutler, okay? This isn't Peyton Manning coming off of neck surgery. We have never seen a quarterback, a franchise quarterback, at the peak of his game, because he set some personal records in with that terrible team with no DeAndre Hopkins. We have never seen a quarterback of this caliber at his peak available, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It shouldn't happen.
Yes.
So, it shouldn't happen. Just like, we didn't do a conference championship recap, Bloom, because I was in Mobile last week for the Senior Bowl. But Aaron Rodgers probably is not very happy.
Yeah.
Now, Matt LaFleur coming out and saying today, what is this, a trick question? Absolutely, he's our quarterback. Okay, fine. Again, we understand why they say that. But if teams are already just inquiring, hey, is Rodgers available? And, I understand some people would bring up Jordan Love. Jordan Love is so far from being ready.
Tim Boyle,
if
they trade Aaron Rodgers,
Tim Boyle
has
starter.
a better, yeah.
And Tim Boyle probably beats out Jordan Love in a quarterback competition in training camp. Unless Love takes these unbelievable strides, like he's just that far behind, that far off. Keep that in mind, when we discuss these quarterbacks coming in this year. Because to me, Bloom, there's like two, and then everybody else is, but you can talk yourself into everybody else, because there's going to be 5 first-round quarterbacks. I saw Mac Jones this week, and we'll do a Senior Bowl recap Thursday or Friday. But the Aaron Rodgers thing, is he actually? Everyone's on the block because everyone has a price. But is he really on the block? Is he really potentially available, Bloom?
I would think if that was the case, then they would have seriously entertained what the Rams were offering. Because if McVay was willing to give up a 2022, 2023 third to get Stafford, I have to think that it would have been, like I said, like an NBA style deal, like 4 first-round picks, 5 first-round picks. I would just imagine that they would have said, look, this is how serious we are. Like, there's no limit. I mean, they would have traded Aaron Donald, okay? But I'm not sure, or Jalen Ramsey. I'm not sure where the line would have been drawn other than that. So I don't know that a team, and Aaron Rodgers is not Deshaun Watson in terms of where he's at in his career arc either. So, and I don't know that Aaron Rodgers would want to go to the Jets or, the Texans. Maybe he would be interested in going to Miami. But I could tell from Aaron Rodgers' tone, Aaron Rodgers basically said, hey, it's emotion, it's the game. I was just saying how I was feeling at that time. But he has really turned it down, not just a couple of notches, but all the way back down to 1 on the sense that he's going to play somewhere else next year. And the Packers are saying the right things. But that being said, Cease, I still think that, as Adam Schefter said, what did he say? 18 teams will have new quarterbacks, something like that. Or take the over on 18. I don't know if that's really going to happen. But we're continuing to see, because last year was an incredibly interesting offseason for quarterbacks and all the different movement that we saw. This year is going to be too. And then again, with this Goff development, if teams really do hold the line, and hey, the Bears at least didn't get ensnared in Trubisky. Maybe I said that too early.
Right.
Maybe they will, but teams I think are doing a better job. Jimmy Garoppolo sounds like the San Francisco answer for the next year, so they're not getting untangled from him. But I do think that the idea of quarterbacks changing more frequently or teams being more aggressive about addressing their quarterback situation is exciting for us, and it gives us a lot more to think about in the offseason.
A lot more to think about and a lot more to contemplate, Bloom, just like Jerry Jones is doing right now, going,
Uh-huh.
What can I get? There is minor buzz bloom, and it'll be full disclosure. It's very, very small. And it was weird this year because we were separate from the scouts and the GMs. Like the media was totally separate, even out and about on the town. Like you go out and about to the bar. Although I didn't go to Veets. I haven't been to Veets in a while. But anyway, you don't need to go to Veets anymore. But anyway, so you go out and about and you're not running into NFL types because they're basically quarantined in the team hotel during the Senior Bowl. But I will say this, it did pick up on some minor buzz that Jerry is excited by the trade conversation. He's excited about this quarterback market. What does that mean for Dak Prescott?
Uncertain. So there is a greater than 0% chance that Dak Prescott is not on the Cowboys when the season ends. The season begins, I'm sorry. Is it 0.0001% or 0.1% or 1% or 10%?
Right.
I mean, it's not more than 10%.
It's like Dogecoin right now. Like you got in it when it was less than a penny, and now it's like 5 cents.
Right. Silver. That's the latest thing to cease. Did you get your money?
I've been into silver for years and years and years.
La Plata. You got it. It's good, man. Get your pirate silver. So
get your booty.
Exactly. That's virtual Sigmund, who hasn't made an appearance in a while, thankfully. So because they messed up, let's just take a moment. There I am. Booty call. Let's just take a moment to breathe this in, Cease, because part of the excitement of watching the NFL is rooting against people or rooting against organizations or wanting to live in a reality where certain styles of business or certain personality types aren't rewarded for their inherent qualities, you know? Jerry Jones blew this. Absolutely blew this. I mean, this was a guide of how not to handle this kind of situation. See, if they had signed Prescott 2 years ago, what would the deal have been? 4 years, $100 million?
Yeah.
4 years, $100 million.
Super cheap.
$25 million a year. He locked up for at least 2 more years. And he'd be happy. They didn't do it 2 years ago. They could have done last year. Last year, what are we looking at, Cease?
30
million.
30
4 120.
Yeah.
You know, because Watson got like 4 150. I mean, Prescott wasn't Watson at that time. Now, Prescott holds all the cards. They can franchise him again. And I mean, they franchise him with the goal of signing him long term, because at this point, Prescott holds all the cards and can say, nah, I'm getting $40 million. Like, he's not getting Mahomes money, but I think he's going to get the second biggest quarterback contract, more than Watson. And he should. I mean, isn't this what we say that players are risking, right? And pray that this ankle dislocation, there's no reason to think that it was something that's career altering. But this is why players want to get that second contract and get that long-term financial security, because they're risking their career every time they take the field. And he did that. And I think that you're right. Jerry might be thinking about a tag and trade, and they can tag him one more time. I don't know what the tag number would be this year. I think 20% over last year's like $40 million, something like that. But then the next year it would go up to 50 plus million. So this is it. I mean, this if they tag him this year and don't get a long-term deal done, that's it. That's all, folks. So you're right. And Jerry Jones had every opportunity, if he just paid what the market said Prescott was worth. It didn't matter whether he thought it was a good deal or not. That's just the ticket price for a quarterback that has done what Prescott has done in his career. And what did they pay him in his rookie DLCs? What did he get as a 4th-round pick? Like $3 million or $4 million?
Yeah. I think a final year of his deal is probably like $1 million or $2 million.
Yeah. And what was he worth during that? And if I was an agent, my dad wanted me to be an agent. Find Donovan McNabb, find all those guys at Syracuse and become their friends and become an agent. That was his advice to me. 84-year-old Sigmund Bloom. If I was an agent, this is how I'd argue it. Okay, the Cowboys already paid $3 or $4 million for play that was worth $20 million a year, right? They're already 80 million in the black, 75 million in the black.
Mm-hmm.
So if you lose 10 or 20 million at the margin because you really want to hold the line, you're not thinking the right way. You're already winning. You're already winning in a way that this new contract won't make you a loser. You already won. So I hope that Prescott plays his hand all the way to the end and either gets out of Dallas or gets what he wants from them.
What you got is just a taste, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Our 4,000th episode of the Audible is coming out on, looks like Wednesday is the day we're going to do it.
Wednesday.
It's going to be a 4-hour extravaganza. So we want all of you there, all of you to join us. Hell, I might even tweet out the link to join the show physically, Bloom. Or at least put it in our chat room if you would like to. Because it's a celebration of you. It's a celebration of this show. It's a celebration of this community. Will we be talking football? Yes. Will we have some star-studded guests? Yes. But mainly it's just to talk, hang out. Like, we're just hanging out. I mentioned Jay Cutler there. So Wednesday, 4,000th episode of the Audible. That is coming up. Don't exactly know the start time yet, but if I were to say 11:30 a.m. Eastern, that's probably pretty close to what will happen and what will be. So 4,000. We want your hashtag Audible4000. We want your stories to tweet us your stories at Cecil Lammey, at Sigmund Bloom, at the Audible. Just some of your favorite memories. We've already got some of them coming through that we will highlight on this show as well. So Audible4000, use the hashtag and join us. Join us in the celebration where we take 4 hours and we just get down, man. Get down. And Bloom looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah.
Got people excited about it on the Senior Bowl trip. I can't call it the All-Star trip because there's just one stop.
The one-star trip.
The 1-star trip, yeah, but it was 5 stars abound for this program, all of our dear friends that we've made along the way, including our dear audience. So color me excited, Bloom, for Wednesday's big show.
Yeah, I think that, as we say often, this show brings a lot of light into our lives. Hopefully it brings a lot of light into your life. And this goes for anything out there, folks. It's just like whenever your kid graduates from high school, right, Cease? I mean, you're celebrating that you made it. We put this time into this project. Look what we've built together, the times that we've spent together, the times we'll spend together in the future. And it's been a ride that, I mean, if we talk about, Cease, how fantasy football podcasting what has changed in the 15 years we've been doing this show. Right. That alone, we could take up the 4 hours just ruminating about. But I know that there are literally dozens of people that I've met, had lunch with, had coffee with, had beer with because of this show. And that alone is what makes it the gift that keeps on giving. So it's always worth celebrating these things. And see, that's another thing that I'll say for our chat room folks that come out. When we're doing the Audible 4,000 show, tell us some of the things in your life that you want to celebrate too.
Right.
Because I think that, eat your ice cream while it's on your plate. Be happy while you're alive with what there is to be happy with. And I always leave this show very happy.
Yeah. And confirmed. I'll mention one because everything's in the works right now, Bloom. Confirmed. 1 p.m. Eastern time, Joe Bryant. So you want to know why we say sorry, Joe? Joe's going to join us on Wednesday. That's going to be lots and lots of fun. He is Sigmund Bloom. I am Cecil Lammey. We are the Audible, everyone out there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.